Welcome back. Well, today's story is about a grandma and her granddaughter. The book's author, Kaukalia Yang, has used memories of her own family for the book. Kaukalia was born in a refugee camp in Thailand in 1980. Here's a picture of them. Her mom, dad, older sister, and grandma. They are among an ethnic group with their own language and culture who are scattered across several countries in Southeast Asia. Finally, when Kaukalia was around 7, she and her family immigrated to the United States and settled in Minnesota. Kaukalia went on to college and graduate school and is now married with 3 kids and lives in St. Paul, Minnesota. And we've read another of her books, A Map into the World, which was also about a Hmong family who had moved to the United States. The Most Beautiful Thing, written by Kaukalia Yang, illustrations by Qua Le. The illustrator, Qua Le, lives in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam. She says she has several cats. Qua is actually a popular boy's name in Vietnam. She says her mom was expecting a boy, but she didn't change the name she had picked out when Qua was born. So let's read. My grandmother is so old, no one knows how old she is. Not me, not my big sister Da, nor my older cousin Lei. My father waits patiently when we try to guess her age. He's my grandma's 9th and youngest child, and even he does not know how old she is. We know that my grandma was born on the other side of the world, across a wide ocean. My grandma came from a time and a place where creatures lurked in the jungles, waiting to chase unwary children. She told us that she once looked into the gleaming eyes of a tiger and felt its hot breath on her face. By the time I was born, my grandmother already had an old woman's face. Her skin was soft, but dry like paper, and in her mouth was a single tooth. Grandma said, "It's the only thing standing strong in my mouth, this final tooth that my mother and father gave me." I asked to see a picture of her parents. She said, "Mine, they lived in a time long before the Hmong learned of such things as photographs." She pointed to her heart. "The only picture I have of them is here." The luckiest of the grandchildren got to help take care of Grandma. Lei got to wash Grandma's clothes by hand at the bathroom sink with sweet-smelling pink soap. Da got to wash Grandma's soft brown back in the bathtub with a soapy cloth. And me, I got to clip her fingernails and toenails while Grandma sat on her favorite stool in the light from the window. I can still feel the roughness of Grandma's heels in my hand and the thickness of her toenails in between my fingers. I can see the bottoms of her feet, thick and brown and broken, deep cracks filled with dirt from long ago and far away. Grandma told me her mother and father died when she was a little girl. Grandma was just a child herself, but she had to take care of her 2 younger brothers and baby sister. I looked up at my grandma from the place where I sat at her feet, and I asked her, "How did you get food for them?" Grandma said, "I didn't find enough food. We lived always with hunger eating us on the inside." all my life with her. Even with just her one tooth, Grandma never said no when we offered her something to eat. The ice cream truck was singing its song from down the street. I looked underneath the couch for quarters. There were none, so I got ice cubes from the freezer. I offered one to Grandma in my red plastic cup. She smiled at me. When I wanted a new dress to wear on the first day of 3rd grade, my mother said she did not have enough money. She found some nickels and a dime in her purse and offered them to me. I bought hard peppermint candies from the neighborhood grocery store at the corner of our block. When I got home, I offered one to Grandma on the palm of my hand. She smiled at me. At the round table with the shaky legs, I used my spoon to mix and mix in the center soup bowl we all shared. There were no pieces of meat, only bones and soft greens. My father said, "The price of meat is too expensive at the market, Nene." I found a thick chunk of bone and offered it to Grandma on my spoon. She smiled at me. We only had plenty of meat when we celebrated Hmong New Year with our aunts, uncles, and cousins. The old table was heavy with whole boiled chickens, more than our family could ever eat. After dinner, our bellies full, my cousins and I sat on the carpet around Grandma as she told us stories. She always began, "It was a long time ago, and I was just a girl." As we listened, our eyes grew round. Grandma twisted her fingers one over the other to show us what the hands of Bungong jungle spirits the size of children look like. She taught us how to listen for the cries of the fearsome Pinuvi by holding our breath until our hearts pounded in our ears. We were always sad when Aunt Chu called, "Time for the children to help clean up." On a cold day, when the snow blew onto the window pane and the light was dim, I asked Grandma about the dirt in her feet. She told me she didn't have shoes after her mother and father died. She went shoeless to the mountains to tend the family field. She ventured into the jungle to look for wild roots, bamboo shoots, and edible mushrooms. And one day, she was chased by a tiger. As she fled, her bare feet broke open on the fallen branches, and she still ran, blood and dirt mixing into clay with each step. I squeezed her feet in my arms and pulled them close to my heart. A hug for the hard road she's walked to get to me. Each year, cutting my grandma's nails went faster because I grew stronger and bigger and more able. Each year, Grandma's feet felt smaller and smaller in my hands and my lap. Her stories, too, slowed with the passing years. The pauses between her words grew long. Sometimes, as Grandma was looking for the words she'd lost to the years, I grew distracted from my task, looking at the toys on the floor that needed to be picked up, the unfinished schoolwork, the younger children who needed to be bathed. Her deep, even breathing would call me back to the moment, only to find her eyes closed in sleep one hand braced against the window to cradle her head. I grew unhappy with our life. I was tired of getting ice cubes from the freezer when I wanted ice cream. I grew tired of never getting the new dress for that first day of school. I was tired of gnawing on the bone in the soup when I wanted meat for myself and my grandma. One evening, I studied my face in the bathroom mirror, wishing my teeth were straight. I came out of the bathroom and said, "Mom and Dad, I want braces. Can I have them?" My mother looked up from nursing my baby sister and said, "We don't have any money. Maybe next year?" My father looked up from my toddler sister he was bouncing on his legs and said, "I wish we could get you braces, Mine, but we can't right now." My grandmother looked up from her special stool by the big window. "Kalia," she said, "look at me." I turned to her in the glow of early evening. The sun was low in the sky, and its golden light fell on her face. Grandma asked, "Is my smile not beautiful?" In that moment, I could see all the times my grandmother had smiled at me. I could taste the cold ice cubes that melted summer's heat from our tongues, the sweetness of the hard peppermint candies, and the deep flavors of the bone broth in the bowls of boiled greens. Even now, I can still see my grandma's single tooth, white against the shadows, standing tall in her open mouth. Her smile was the most beautiful thing. The end. Wow. Kalia's life growing up was perhaps a lot different than most of ours, right? And I think she wrote this to remember, to honor her grandmother and her parents, and maybe to share with her children and grandchildren what life was like when she was a little girl, passing on the heritage. See you next week, and we'll have another cool story.